Questions, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you being here. All my questions have gone out the window because of comments that have been made of recent, or at least a lot of them have. You were very kind to the previous administration to say they put their thumbs on the scale when they were looking at various energy sources. In my district, which has got natural gas and predominantly coal, we felt like it wasn't a thumb on the scale. We felt like it was a boot on our necks. We had thousands of jobs lost, families disrupted, communities losing businesses left and right, hospitals closing down because they no longer had the big employer at the coal mine to pump in the insurance into the hospital and the money coming in there. It was devastating. And so I was kind of surprised, one, that Mr. McKinley missed the Nettle report in his detail. He kept going. I guess he had to have some time for questions, and so he left that one out. But further, that Mr. Tonko doesn't understand, and he's a good man, but he doesn't understand it would be easy for people who were that desperate, like a thirsty man in the desert who finally discovers an oasis, to consume that Nettle report and put out the request for a 202C relief within 2 days, because the coal community has been desperate until you all have come along and not wanting to put your finger on the scale at all, but wanting to make sure that there's an all-of-the-above strategy for the United States, and I thank you. Would you like to make any comment before I go on?
Go right ahead, sir.
All right. So I appreciate that, and I do have this to say, although it's not your department. He indicated that, you know, the fact that we had to use the coal and it cost more, that was the markets at work. It's also federal regulation, because what we need to do is we need to look at the new source review rules, because when a coal-fired power plant and lots of other businesses that use coal for power go in and they want to make one little change, even if it makes that plant more efficient, they have to then comply with all kinds of regulations. I have a facility in my district, which is not a power plant, another facility that I toured a number of years ago, and they had a kink in their conveyor belt because at one time there had been a part of their paint shop on the end of the conveyor belt. They no longer had that paint shop there, or that painting capacity. I think it was lacquer. But they left the kink, and so we walked over the conveyor belt once, and then we walked over it a second time where it just went out into empty space, and the owner said that because he had to meet those EPA regulations, it was easier just to leave the kink in the conveyor belt than to make his process more efficient. We need to make some changes there, and I hope you would agree with that, even though I know it's the EPA's turf.
Right. Mr. Griffith, I think you bring in a very high-level way what this administration is focused on. The President has given clear directives to people like myself, Scott Pruitt, Secretary Zinke, from a regulatory standpoint, that getting rid of regulations where the cost outweigh the benefit is one of the real goals, and it's been, I think, very successful to date. And the key here is having some common sense applied, being able to recognize that we have overregulated this country, and those overregulations have cost this country a huge amount of jobs and untold wealth. So you are spot on from the standpoint of the single most important thing I learned as a governor. The tax policy is important. I mean, don't overtax, but businesses know how to deal with that. It's when you have a regulatory environment that is strangling, where you will lose your businesses. One of the reasons we were able to bring a lot of businesses out of California to Texas. No offense to anybody from California that's here, but the point is they were over-regulating, and businesses want to get out of that environment. So the regulation side of what you're talking about is incredibly important. It's not just about being able to address the national security side of things, the issues that we talk about, whether it's a 202 or whether it's some other avenue towards making sure we have a reliable portfolio. But the regulatory environment in this country has to be addressed.
And I could not agree more, and I appreciate all the work that you all are doing in the administration to get this straightened out, because it really has, I think, hurt our country. That being said, let me switch to more positive things. Ms. Castor complimented you on the testimony of one of your folks at the O&I subcommittee yesterday related to Puerto Rico. I think that they're doing great work down there. We appreciate it. But I think we can also use that as a test bed for other areas that might get isolated in a disaster. and look at doing microgrids and other things that we can move this country forward to make sure that we have our grid resilient. We have a perfect example. We're going to spend a lot of money there anyway. Let's spend it doing experiments to see how we can build the system for the rest of the country as well. And with that, I know you agree, but I have to yield back.
Yes, sir.
Time expired. Mr. Lobsat.